I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by my co-host with Harrison Bader like hair,
Yeah, it's a weird ordeal. Katie is just proving to be childish.
which is why I don't feel I would give $5 million to Jack Campbell.
I don't know. Baseball is one of those sports where anyone who makes the playoffs really can be a contender.
I think the Padres definitely do it.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell gets traded.
Kyrie Irving does have the track record of not being a great locker room fit, or even good locker room fit.
Bader got some luscious locks. I gotta say it.
This is Zach Bigley, the broadcaster for the Frisco Rough Riders, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin. You guys better subscribe.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. We're doing a little throwback Thursday, since we're recording on Thursday, and we're talking about the top 10 Super Bowl performances the past few years. The earliest Super Bowl we could talk about is the San Francisco-Baltimore Super Bowl in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where Baltimore won 34-31, and then to now before the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl. It was nice looking back on it. Mine are pretty recent because that's when I started paying attention, or paying a lot more attention to the players and type of performances. And I'll let you take it away. And I am joined by the Tom Brady truther, Austin.
Yeah, Tom Brady is at least one in my top 10 performances in the last 10 years. So I'll start with my number 10. It's Rob Gronkowski in Super Bowl 55. He may not have the yards to back it up as only 67, but 6 receptions, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, if you watch that Super Bowl, which I know you did, Kevin, his impact on the game was felt throughout the entirety of it, and it really was a coronation of the fact that Gronk and Brady could do it away from New England.
That's very true. I thought about putting Gronk on the list, but number 10 is Julio Jones. I get the numbers mixed up. Is this so? It's I would assume it's 51. Yes, it's Super Bowl 51. Even though Julio Jones lost, he only made 4 catches, which I was shocked. But he made one of the best catches, that toe tap catch, and I believe it was to get a first down. But then they couldn't convert. Okay,
it was, and then he got sacked, and then they got a holding penalty, and then they threw an incompletion, and then they punted.
And then I think Tom Brady went down. So it was in a pivotal moment of the game, and if they could have just held on, or if someone else didn't play just as great, that probably would be an incredible moment in Super Bowl history, and it would have a positive note. But that's why he's number 10, because he didn't quite win it, but it was still an incredible play and a great performance from him.
Okay, I see we're definitely going in different directions because you went with a moment more defining than the actual entirety of the game, because I know you don't remember any of his other catches.
Yeah, no, it's the moment in which, yeah.
Okay. Well, who's your number 9?
Oh, number 9 is Damian Williams, from Super Bowl 53, I believe. 54. Dang.
54.
Okay, 54. And thanks. Yeah, I'm just terrible at Roman numerals. So 54, he had over 100 yards, and I remember when we were recording, you thought he could have been play for MVP, and
He should have been MVP.
And it was on one of NFL Films, and I was bored, so I was watching it a little bit, and I just kind of forgot about Damian Williams. I think he was a late signing later in the year, and to me, I think he was a huge part of that success with the Kansas City offense.
Yeah, I do have him on my list, but we're not there yet. My number 9 is Julian Edelman in Super Bowl 53. 10 receptions, 140. Let me check again to make it sure. 141, I believe. 141 yards. Super Bowl MVP for him. He also had one rushing attempt for 8 yards, but he was a major reason why their offense could move the ball at all. It was a defensive showing in that Super Bowl, so 141 yards by one receiver in a defensive game, very impressive. And if he does make the Hall of Fame, which I think he has a chance to, even though he has 0 Pro Bowls, this is why. 3 Super Bowls and a Super Bowl MVP with a couple 1,000-yard seasons and great years from him. A big part of if he does make a Hall of Fame or at least gets close, this is his most known performance. This is his best performance, and this would be the reason why he'd get in.
Yeah, I would agree. I do have him later on the list.
Nice. So my number 8 is Malcolm Smith, the linebacker from Seattle in Super Bowl 48. He had a tremendous game, like historic. Now, he's this low because the game was a blowout. If the game was closer, I may have him higher because his impact on the game was felt completely. He had 1 pick for a touchdown, 6 solo tackles, 4 assisted for 10 combined tackles, and he had a fumble recovery for 7 yards. So a pick 6, a fumble recovery. His hands were all over this game, and if this game was closer, he probably would have been in my top 5. But the blowout sense, I don't know if his performance was absolutely needed. However, he was huge in that game, and I definitely feel like he deserved it.
Yeah, it was great. Well, it wasn't a great Super Bowl. It was like a dominant Super Bowl from one team. But for my number 8, mine's basically a moment. It's Malcolm Butler, the interception, and the huge case. Man, what would it look like with Seattle now if Russell Wilson gets back-to-back Super Bowls? But to play that still haunts Russell Wilson to this day, especially against the Colts in that Thursday night football game, where it was almost the same play and he just didn't look right.
Yeah, it's definitely something that will stick with him for the entirety of his career. Pete Carroll's career, Marshawn Lynch's career, everybody related. Tom Brady's career, for that matter. It's talked about a lot, and it definitely was not the right choice. And Marshawn Lynch, if he does score a touchdown there, would have been in my top 5 because he had a lot of yards. He had a touchdown already, but most of my players here have won their game, and every player I've mentioned so far has. But who's your number 7?
My number 7 is C.J. Anderson. So this is the only touchdown from the Broncos. This comes from Super Bowl 50. He sealed that win with that touchdown, and then they went for 2. And I think he was a huge part of their offense because Peyton Manning was just at the end of his career, and he wasn't that gunslinger like he was, or the sheriff like he was before. He was just changing the play and doing great. And I think C.J. Anderson really pushed that team, pushed that offense while the defense did its job, or did more than just its job.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, Peyton was less than even a good QB. He was not good. I mean, it was mainly just his brain getting him through this. But as he did only have 141 yards, 1 pick. But CJ, 90 yards, a touchdown, 4 receptions for 10 yards, so 100 total yards there. I get it. I didn't have any offensive players from this Super Bowl, but I do understand. My number 7 is Damian Williams. This should have been MVP Damian Williams. He had 2 touchdowns and 133 all-purpose yards, including 17 for 104 and 4 for 29, 2 touchdowns. And while Mahomes, yes, he threw for 2, Mahomes had 2 picks in this game. Now, he did have a rushing touchdown, so he contributed to 3 touchdowns. But it really was his 2 picks. I felt like he didn't really deserve the MVP over Damian Williams, who I believe was the best player on the Chiefs that game. So I have him here, and I definitely agree that he should be on here. I have him a little bit higher than you do. Now, my number 6, if we're talking about more of the moment instead of actually performance, this is it, even though this guy had an amazing performance, and that's Tom Brady in Super Bowl 55. Going back to Super Bowl 55 where I had Gronk, Brady this game, 3 touchdowns on 21 of 29, so he's very super efficient, hyper efficient. He only had 201 passing yards. However, it didn't matter. He was so efficient, had 3 touchdown passes. Everything was perfect. He only got sacked 1 time. And again, it's more moment as well. So, like, yes, 3 touchdowns. He deserved Super Bowl MVP, all that stuff. but it was more he proved that he could do it outside of New England, and he dominated. One of the only guys, if the only guy currently in the league that could even have a chance at testing him for GOAT. He beat him in the Super Bowl after beating him in 2018 in the AFC Championship. So it's definitely amazing. Who's your 6?
Yeah, that is a great performance from Tom Brady. My 6 is James White. 14 receptions for 110 yards, and he had the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 51. Or no, 49. No, 51. It's 51. My bad. But he was incredible, and it's someone that I forgot about. He was just one of those running backs that came up and did really well for a little bit, and then he got a nice deal with the Giants. I believe after this game, or after this season. So he's top 6. I think he was a huge part of their offense, and it showed with the 14 receptions and 110 yards. And he also contributed on the ground with that touchdown.
Yeah, I also have James White in mind, but we're not there yet. Who's your 5?
My 5 is Julian Edelman.
Okay.
Higher than you, 10 receptions, 141 yards, as you said. And I believe this is the game, because this is against the Rams where there wasn't much offense. He made that incredible catch where he's on the ground.
Oh, no, that was against the Falcons.
Oh, that's against the Falcons? Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking about that, but still, Edelman was a huge part of this game, and I do think it will be used if he gets into the Hall of Fame. I think the NFL Hall of Fame isn't that strict in my opinion, so I wouldn't be shocked if he got in.
That's true. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It's more strict than basketball, but it's not as strict as, let's say, baseball. Baseball is definitely the most strict, and if you make the Baseball Hall of Fame, you really did something special. But I'll move on to my 5. My 5 is the first player on my list so far that lost the Super Bowl. T. Higgins in Super Bowl 56 was amazing. And I don't have Cooper Kupp, spoiler, on my list, mainly because of that BS pass interference call on Logan Wilson that was not pass interference. And of all the teams that won a Super Bowl, the Rams are one of those teams that it's so infuriating. I can't do it. But T. Higgins, 4 receptions, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He torched Jalen Ramsey twice in that game. Just utterly torched him. You may not have him on your list, but he was amazing in that game. Yes, Chase was good with 5 receptions for 89, but Higgins, man. And I'm telling you, they have to keep these two together. They have to keep Higgins and Chase. It is going to be tough. I understand that. And I know you've talked about them getting rid of one or the other, but
well, I don't think. I think it's pretty obvious if you're going to get rid of one, who you get rid of.
Well, I would argue that T. Higgins throughout his career has been better in the playoffs than Ja'Marr Chase.
Well, I think you trade Higgins and get a couple picks, but we'll see. I don't have anyone from last Super Bowl. I had Cooper Kupp, but then I was like, nah, there's some more guys I want to focus on. So
yeah, the main reason why he isn't on my list is because he.
Well, yeah, I know how you feel about last year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, so, we had a whole conversation mid game.
There's a phone call, then there's a recording, and then the quarterback discussions.
Yeah, it was.
I understand your point, but yeah, it was just kind of. I don't know how I feel about it. So now my 4.
My 4.
Oh, your 4. Cool.
My 4 is Nick Foles, Super Bowl 52. Look. When I was watching that game initially, I wanted the Eagles to win. Looking back, I wanted the Eagles to lose because I've had much more affinity now for Tom Brady as it's been publicized everywhere. But Nick Foles, come on. 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, he had a pick, but he also had a receiving touchdown. Got Philly their first championship. Wow. I mean, you could not ask more from Nick Foles, and I was utterly baffled. And here he is at my number 4.
I'm also utterly baffled because he is also my number 4. So you and I agree on the spot and the number. So yeah, he was incredible. I was rooting for the Patriots in this one because I just can't root for the Eagles no matter what. So yeah, he was incredible and one of the most improbable runs. And then 2 years later, it got him a huge contract with the Jaguars, and he just hasn't. It's such a lightning in the bottle moment, and definitely was an iconic Super Bowl play. And he made an incredible catch and some incredible throws. So yeah, I think we can move on, but I'm a little shocked we agreed. But now we'll go to 3. For me, I have Von Miller with 2.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in the Super Bowl 50 win with the Broncos. He is the reason, in my opinion, they won that Super Bowl. He was the player behind that defense, and he pushed them to greatness. They had great pieces as well, but he just showed why the Broncos were able to win and why they could do it under such unique circumstances because there wasn't that stellar quarterback. Like we said, Manning wasn't what he used to be at that time, and it was truly shows defenses win championships. And it also was a great storyline. Number 2 pick versus number 1 pick. Von Miller still in the league. Cam Newton is no longer in the league.
Yeah, that Super Bowl was legacy defining for multiple players, but I do have Von Miller again. Not yet. My number 3, James White. I know you had him. Man, James White. 6 rushes, 29 yards, 2 touchdowns. 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 touchdowns in this game and the only touchdown to literally end the Super Bowl because of the overtime touchdown. His touchdown ended the Super Bowl. And wow. Now, luckily, that would never happen again because the Falcons would have got the ball back. And I would have loved if the Falcons had got the ball back in that Super Bowl, even though I was rooting for the Patriots. Because imagine a Falcons score, and then the Patriots go right back down and score again. I mean,
yeah, it's gonna be fun. This new overtime rule.
Yeah, I hope we get to see it, even if it's not this year. We'll eventually get to see where one team scores a touchdown, then another team scores a touchdown, and I can't wait until that happens.
And then it's like those hockey games where it's just overtime.
Well, no, not. Because it's only one touchdown, and then you got to stop them because Well, if I was a team that scored the second touchdown, I'm going for 2 respectfully, but that's just me. I mean, I'm a lot more aggressive than you are. But
it depends if it depends on like if I'm playing, because in Madden I'll be more aggressive, but like I know I'll get it.
That's crazy confidence. My number 2
it's confidence.
Is Von Miller. I have him higher than you, mainly because I just can't. Oh man, this game was all defense. And one player I do want to bring up really quickly as an honorable mention in this Super Bowl, who had one of the best Super Bowls I would argue ever, and he was my 10, and I was so close to getting him in, and then I saw Gronk, and I'm like, no, I can't put him in. And it's Coney Ealy. You may not know who that is, but in this Super Bowl, Kevin, he had 3 sacks and a pick.
It's that defensive end for the Panthers.
3 sacks and a pick.
I think I remember
and they lost. And he had a fumble recovery and a forced fumble. He had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 3 sacks, and a pick. He would have been in my top 5 if they had won that game. But it's mainly because I felt like I couldn't put 2 defensive players in the same game on opposite teams. And he was my 11. He was my 11. And again, Von Miller, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble he had 2 forced fumbles. One of them resulted in Cam Newton's end of his career. The other one resulted in a touchdown. It didn't actually end Cam Newton's career, but looking back, it basically did. people don't know if he's actually going to fight for your team. But wow, Von Miller guaranteed his Hall of Fame status with that game.
Yeah, it was incredible. So now we'll go to my two. I have Tom Brady in the Atlanta comeback. Plenty of Tom Brady performances. I chose this one because he had a terrible first half, especially with that pick. And it all worked out, and he was able to get the win, and it's definitely one of those shining moments in his Super Bowl performance. And I believe this is when he tied Charles Haley. No, there are two more. No,
Yes,
when he ties
this is where he
Charles Haley.
tied Charles Haley. The next
And
one he
then-
passes him, and the next one he passes Jordan. So, or
Gotcha.
every team. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it was incredible.
Yeah, I did not have this Brady performance, even though I haven't listed my number one yet. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek. I did not
I'm
add
assuming you doubled up on Tom Brady.
that. Well, we have one left, but you go first on your one.
So I cheated with this one. I said Seattle defense. You mentioned Smith already. To me, this is when I was like, man, the Broncos are going to win. Peyton Manning's going to win. And it will be great. But it just didn't happen. And it was because of that Seattle defense. One of the best defenses, like top down, incredible. And they just made it a game where you had to turn it off. I believe I didn't finish it. I turned it off. I couldn't handle it. And I think it's an incredible performance and definitely one of the best overall, even though I cheated, but it's just incredible. And that defense was stacked. You had Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell. Then you had Michael Bennett, Brandon Browner, Bobby
'Cause
Wagner.
He was on that one, and then he left and went to the Patriots, so that he won back to back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
It was incredible.
My number one, Tom Brady. Yes, you were right. I did double dip. I could have triple dipped. I almost put
Yeah.
Tom Brady Falcons game at number 10 over Gronk. But I have to mention this. This is, I think, the best Super Bowl performance in NFL history. And it's from someone who lost. Tom Brady, Super Bowl 52. I have never seen a quarterback that efficient, that consistent. 28 for 48, which I guess isn't the best efficiency. 505 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Yes, he fumbled because his O-line crumbled when it mattered. Because, by the way, that was his only sack the entire game. That
Yeah.
was the only sack from either team the entire game.
Dang.
Look, there's no way to prove this. So me saying I guarantee it means nothing because there's no way to prove it. But I bet you would agree. Tom Brady doesn't get strip sacked. The Patriots drive in the field, score a touchdown, and win the game.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close to that. I was shocking when it didn't happen. And I was just,
Well,
I think
it
the
wasn't
Eagles
because of
defense.
Brady. That's the thing. It wasn't.
I think it was
because-
just like the Eagles' defense was that good.
no. They weren't that good. They allowed over 600 yards. They were horrible in that game. Horrible. There
I
was
think their
one
pass
sack.
rush.
No, they were horrible.
great.
They had one sack the entire game. That was it. That was their one play they made the entire
that sack
game.
changed the game.
But you're saying their defense played well. That is one play. The entire game they played good. One play they played good. That doesn't mean they play good.
But like there weren't
Because
any other plays.
let me
after
put it
that.
this way. Let me put it this way, Kevin. If their offense didn't have a historically great performance, they lose that game by 20.
I think that defensive line was pretty stacked. You had Brandon Graham.
Then why did
Fletcher
they make
Cox.
one play the entire game? Why did they play horrible? Why did they allow
'Cause they were
Tom
getting the
Brady
ball out fast.
505? Kevin, you don't get 505 yards by throwing the ball out fast. That's not how that happens.
I'm gonna disagree with you on this. I had a feeling you were gonna bring up this point because you always talk about like how can a quarterback lose you the game if he's throwing 505 yards?
Oh no, it's the best performance in Super Bowl history. Look, let me prove it to you. You want to hear the players? Danny Amendola.
Are you talking about
just-
wide receivers? Can I guess?
Yeah,
one?
one second. Julian Edelman was out for this game. They did not have Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman tore his ACL against the Cowboys in the preseason before the game started. So
Dang.
he did this without Julian Edelman, his best wide receiver. Okay, Danny Amendola went for 8 receptions for 152 yards. Danny Amendola went for 8 for 152 against the Eagles. That's such a great defense. Next, Chris Hogan, 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. Both of those guys, the guys are like, oh, that's why the New England they
Chris
just pick a
Long.
white guy off
That's
the
who's on
street. That's a small white dude off the street to play slot receiver. Those two guys combined for almost 300 yards from Danny Amendola and Chris Hogan. Not to mention that a third receiver went for 100 yards that game, and Gronk for 116 and 2 touchdowns. They allowed 3 guys to almost go for 500 yards. They played horrible.
Maybe just from what I
Horrible.
remember, that outside of Nick Foles, that Eagles defense.
Was horrible. They could not guard cardboard out there. There was a cardboard cutting of Julian Edelman on the field that they were double teaming, I guess, the entire game or they were just covering the ghost of Edelman. Because if you let Danny Amendola go for 152 and Chris Hogan go for 128 and a touchdown in the same game, you are horrible. Or let me throw the other option out there. Tom Brady had the greatest game in NFL history.
No.
That's the only other option. Because this is a thing I bring up to a lot of biased fans that hate Tom Brady. And I'm like,
Tom
okay,
Brady.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to other people. And again, I talk to them and I'll be like, okay, how good is Danny? They just don't like the Patriots at all. So I'll say, how good is Danny Amendola?
Okay.
Well, Danny Amendola sucks. Well, how good is Chris Hogan? Chris Hogan sucks. Again, they combined for 180 yards. I mean, not 180, 280 yards in a touchdown in a Super Bowl. That is unheard of. How did that happen?
I am shocked at how high scoring it was.
Well,
I don't
because
remember.
both defenses were horrible. Everyone talks again, and I will. Everyone's like, "Oh, Bill Belichick gave Brady the last Super Bowl of his career against in Super Bowl 53." Oh, the team was they played horrible that game. No one was their offense was horrible. All this other stuff. The Super Bowl before 52. That's the reason why I think you could prove that Brady did not need Belichick, and that's really proven by 55, which is why
I was gonna say 55 really proves it.
But I think 52 is right up there with proving it because I've never seen it, and throughout all those years, you never had from 51 on. Like, Danny Amendola left in 53, in Super Bowl 53, and Danny Amendola was always one of the best Super Bowl performances also. Like, I mean, you go back, he had a touchdown and 78 yards against the Falcons and was amazing even in that Super Bowl against the Seahawks where he also had a touchdown. But, man, those are the performances from Brady that you can't say, oh, he's a system quarterback. A system quarterback doesn't throw for 505. With his best wide receiver being Danny Amendola, and his second best wide receiver being Chris Hogan. And you got to think, you know who was hurt right at the beginning of that game? Brandon Cooks. And I guarantee you, Brandon Cooks would have gone for 300 yards against that Eagles defense if he didn't get concussed.
Oh, was Eric Rowe? Was he the corner for the Eagles defense? Eric Rowe?
I think Eric Rowe was on he was on the Patriots.
Dang. Okay.
But it was Malcolm Jenkins that ended Brandon Cooks. And he ended up losing the ball and caused all that stuff. Brandon Cooks got 1 reception for 1 yard in that game. But I'm telling you, Brandon Cooks, I mean, he went for over 100 yards in the Super Bowl 53 with the Rams. He goes for probably 200 yards that game, along with all the other yards. Tom Brady throws for like 700 yards, and they win the game 80-40.
Well, it was fun looking back, and now we'll look on to the new. Hopefully, this Super Bowl, no controversies, and Chiefs win. because then I would get my prediction correct.
Yep. I also hope that the Chiefs win, mainly because I have them winning as well. But we'll get to our Super Bowl predictions
That's true.
in a video to come soon. But I just remembered that last year, before the season started, I picked the Bills to win. This year in the playoffs, I picked the Bills to win. I was gonna stop picking the Bills.
Hey, you could have been like me, pick Bengals. I thought you had the Bengals. Oh, I think you had like the Raiders beating some team, and I walked out. I can't remember though what team that was. Maybe it was Chiefs.
Well, before this season started, I had the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. Before the season started this
Okay.
year.
Maybe it was the Bills. That may have been it. I can't remember. Well, we'll talk about
I'll have
that
to check.
later.
Yeah.
We'll end this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening to our episode. Make sure to check everything else out.